10. Hulk. We all know of the famous Hulkbuster suit. But would it just blow your minds if I told you that Iron Man has defeated the Hulk without it? Yes, that's right. In Iron Man issue 132, our Golden Avenger faced off mano a mano against the strongest Green Avenger. And when I tell you this was one hell of a fight, I ain't lying. After an attempt at helping Bruce Banner results in the Hulk persona emerging, resulting in Tony donning the suit and protecting his employees, the fight goes from Stark Industries to underwater to an Air Force base where the two basically play baseball with a luggage carrier and Tony's favorite jet. The resulting explosion stunned the Hulk, and in that moment, Tony mustered every bit of solar and reserve energy he could, overriding the safety protocols of his suit to hit the stunned Hulk with a singular massive punch that knocked out Hulk and killed that suit of armor. Number 9. Sentry / The Void. This is one of those do whatever the hell I can to defeat you kind of moments. In the Marvel Siege storyline, Bob Reynolds, the Sentry, one of Marvel's Superman characters, has joined with Norman Osborn and his Dark Avengers, being somewhat taken over by the Void. In the end of the story, the Sentry, using the power of the Void, was directed by Osborn to take out the floating city of Asgard, which he did, sending it crashing to the ground. And then he de-lifed Loki. The other Avengers and Thor have not been able to defeat Sentry / Void yet, so as one last ditch attempt, Iron Man uses a whole Hammer helicarrier as a missile and crashes the whole thing down on top of him. This weakens the Void enough that Thor can end him with a blow from Mjolnir, but damn, Tony really just had enough of this guy. Number 8. Hawkeye. Surprise! Hawkeye does not stand a chance against Iron Man, but he did actually put up a pretty good fight the first 2 times they fought. Both times were in Tales of Suspense in issue 57 and 60. Hawkeye's first appearances before he was actually a hero, when he was instead a criminal. Natasha Romanoff, who is also a criminal at the time, tricks Clint into helping her steal Tony's powerful tech. It doesn't go too well for them though. At the end of the first fight in issue 57, Tony gets Clint clinging onto a pole, which he then bends and flicks like one of those little door stopper things, thwanging little Robin Hood here into the water and then saving the unconscious Clint from drowning. Doth Mother know you have not liked or subscribed? Well, that's okay if you don't want to, but it would be appreciated. Okay, let's move on. Number 7. Captain Marvel and Gamora. Combo! Wham bam! Actually, more like pew pew. Look, love it or hate it, the second Marvel Civil War event happened. I could get into what the conflict itself was actually about, but that doesn't really have anything to do with this point. The main thing you need to know is that, just like the first Civil War, the superhuman community is split, with Iron Man leading one side and Carol Danvers leading the other. At the time of this story, Iron Man was sporting his Model Prime armor, an armor that could basically shapeshift and change color for whatever it was he needed to do at the time, making the need for multiple armors a little redundant. During a conflict with Captain Marvel and her group, Tony was under attack from some pretty powerful heroes, specifically Captain Marvel and Gamora jumped in to do battle before they were dispatched from a single blast from Iron Man. Just one shot is all he needed. Damn. Number 6. Emma Frost. Did you know the Avengers fought the X-Men? Yes, it's true. And a comic titled, get this, Avengers vs. X-Men. It's a good title. Seriously though, the conflict blossomed when the Phoenix Force is headed straight to Earth with mutant Hope Summers as its supposed host. The Avengers believe this is bad juju for the population of Earth, and the X-Men think this is gonna be what they need for the mutant population to be reborn. A battle happens between the two teams at the mutant island of Utopia. Partway through, Emma Frost comes to make a move, saying telepathically to Cyclops she can shut down the Avengers telepathically, and she is going to end this. Then Iron Man chimes in, I bet you thought you were just about to end this, as he fires microscopic telepathic tasers at her and hopes she will let him make it up to her over dinner. She punches him in the stomach and he blasts back with his repulsors, but this genuinely made me snicker. Number 5. Facial hair bros. Right smack dab in the middle of the video, sort of not really, I want to do something completely different. Something finally not combat related. Yet a victory for Tony and an embarrassment for none other than Stephen Strange the Sorcerer Supreme. In Invincible Iron Man number 3, Iron Man goes to Doctor Strange for help with a little problem he is having. As he's about to leave the Sanctum Sanctorum, he goes, "Thanks, Doctor," and stays there like this for 8 comic book panels, until Steven gives him a very, very reluctant high five as Tony yells, "Awesome, facial hair bros!" And Steven says, "I hate you." I'm sorry, I had to include this. Number 4, Namor. Iron Man and Namor the Submariner have always had a pretty tense relationship, both having massive egos. They have gone at it with their words and their fisticuffs multiple different times. From what I can tell, the powerful Submariner usually has the win more than often. But Iron Man isn't a pushover. He's gotten some good shots, and in Iron Man number 25 in 1970, we have an example of him winning, in a somewhat hilarious way too. Basically, unbeknownst to Tony, his company had been polluting the ocean with a pipeline. Now yes, that is very, very bad. But if you just go and talk to Tony, I'm sure he'd fix the issue. No, that is not the Submariner's way. No, instead, he attacks, destroying the pipeline and then attacking the buildings it's connected to. To subdue Namor, Tony uses the heating coils of his suit to evaporate all the water in Namor's body, basically rendering him powerless. And then he ties him up to an under construction tower using metal beams. It's kind of hilarious looking, and I feel like Namor could easily slip out of that, like the power of gravity, but it's certainly embarrassing. Number 3, Spider-Man. Spider-Man and Iron Man here have a bit of an interesting relationship. In the MCU, it's very father-son, but in the comics, and specifically in the Civil War event, while Tony takes Peter under his wing and even gives him some great upgrades, actually manipulates the Spider-Lad quite a little bit. Spider-Man switches to Captain America's side, and in Iron Man Volume 4, number 14, Spider-Man, alongside a few other heroes, launch a surprise attack on Tony. While Spider-Man has beaten Tony before, specifically when Tony threatened Mary Jane and Aunt May, the use of the spider armor gave Tony a ton of information about Parker's spider sense. Not just being able to replicate it for himself, but he got the information to use Peter's against him, which he does while making a nice little baseball themed strike 1, 2, and 3, fitting as they are fighting at Yankee Stadium. Number 2, Daredevil. You know what? I really liked Superior Iron Man. The story was cool, and Tony was, well, he was kind of an almost villain, honestly. Specifically, there were 2 times with Daredevil that showcased this really well. After Tony got the whole population of San Francisco addicted to a social media platform, and then began charging them subscription fees for it, trust me, it's a lot more sinister than I'm making it sound, Daredevil goes to Tony's base on Alcatraz Island to confront him, and shut him down. Obviously, that wasn't going to go the way he wanted it to. But even I didn't expect Tony to just pick him up by the throat, tell him he's always welcome but to leave the attitude at home, and then straight up just chuck the blind superhero without fear into the freezing waters of the San Francisco Bay. Cold. Literally. Number 1, Captain America. We love Civil War. Not the actual Civil War, the Marvel one. So many great examples of superheroes fighting other superheroes. But the main star of the show in this conflict is Iron Man versus Captain America. And while the climactic fight ultimately ended in a Captain America favored draw, I'd say the first major fight was definitely more of a win for Tony. In issue 3 and 4 of the main Civil War comic, a battle takes place between the forces of both Cap and Stark. While Steve is fighting Spider-Man, Iron Man comes swooping in, attacking with an armor that's analyzed every fight Cap has ever had. And he just starts going to town on the guy, feeding him the left, right, until Cap is absolutely battered. Cap still doesn't go down, so Tony uses a high frequency that shuts down the human brain. He's about to end the fight when Hercules jumps in, attacking him with an oil tanker truck.
Number 10, Rejected. Kind of. This one comes from JLA issue number 90 from the 1997 series. Here, Wonder Woman and Batman eventually share a kiss, which prompts Diana to look inside herself and see how she really feels about Bruce and the potential for a relationship with him. After looking deep within her subconscious by using the trans-consciousness articulator, try saying that 5 times fast, Diana decides it would be best if she and Bruce didn't actually end up together. She tells him as much, just as he seems to be ready to say the same. Although he also makes quite the face when she asks him if he felt being with her was worth risking all they already had as friends. And while Bruce seems to say that he agrees with Diana wholeheartedly, his face and the parentheses in his speech bubble seem to imply otherwise to me. All in all, I think both of these two ended up a little bit embarrassed by the whole ordeal, so it's a bit of a two-way street with this one. Batman's embarrassed, embarrassed, Diana's a little embarrassed. Number 9. Exposed a critical weakness. This one comes to us from one of the short stories included in the Wonder Woman 80th Anniversary 100-page Super Spectacular. The story is titled Dreamers, and it features a younger Diana who ends up, even as a kid, exposing a critical weakness in the Amazon's defenses for Doom's doorway. She ends up sneaking into the area with the help of Theo, the shark. Theo the shark, so great. Hoping to get a better understanding of secrets and responsibilities she'll inherit when she becomes queen. By the way, in case you forgot, Diana can communicate with animals in marine life. She can talk to Theo. She's basically a more bad Disney princess. Successfully sneaking into the area, Diana comes across Nubia, who is tasked with guarding the doorway, and reprimands Diana for sneaking in. Though she also seems a little bit impressed that Diana, being so young, was able to poke holes in the defenses of her much older and experienced sisters. Fortunately, Nubia's don't worry, I won't tell your mom, but I will have to tell her that hey, there's a hole here. We need to fix that. We need to tell these sharks to keep their mouths shut. Number 8. Defeat 'em to beat 'em. You know how we've mentioned the time that Batman incapacitated inadvertently the whole Justice League thanks to his contingency plans being stolen and then used by Ra's al Ghul? Well, he isn't the only one to defeat the Justice League. In fact, Wonder Woman defeated the Justice League without the interference or influence of anyone else. She did it single-handedly, and instead of it being a betrayal, it was actually to try and protect the League. However, the realization that Wonder Woman could take them all out so easily was likely pretty embarrassing when they came to afterwards. This all happened in League of One, where Diana defeated the League in order to protect them against a prophecy. You see, they had to go up against a dragon, but it was supposed to be the League's fate to both succeed in defeating the dragon, but also die in the process of winning that battle. To spare the rest of her friends and teammates, Diana beat them so that she could face the dragon alone and hopefully be the only one to both defeat it and possibly die in the process. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to show us some love in some other places here on the internet, head on over to our Facebook page, click that like, click that follow, and it really does help us out here at the channel, so thanks for doing that. Number 7. Cheaters never prosper. This was a whole thing where I feel everyone was kind of embarrassed. Pretty much everyone involved I feel was embarrassed in this one. I know I was embarrassed watching this happen. Oof. We are talking about when in the DCEU in Wonder Woman 1984, Diana competes in an Amazonian triathlon against the other Amazons, despite being very much their junior. The princess is hopeful that she can win the competition despite her lack of experience and her youth in comparison to her sisters. However, when she loses her horse, she has to get resourceful in order to catch back up and ends up taking a shortcut to do so. However, apparently it turns out that this is cheating, and so her perceived victory is considered null and void by her mother, the hero, Queen Hippolyta, who also seems pretty disappointed, but still hopeful when it comes to her daughter's attempt. She's like, look, you can't cheat, but maybe next time. Maybe I get him next time. Don't take shortcuts. I was embarrassed because I was really? That was cheating? Oh, okay. I would have done that too. I'm with you, Diana. Number 6. Beats down a god with his own weapon. This one comes from Wonder Woman issue 773. Legacy numbering, where Wonder Woman takes on the god Thor. Not Marvel's Thor, who is very much a hero, but DC's Thor, who is still technically a hero, but also is kind of more of a brute than the Thor Odinson of Marvel's Earth 616. Wonder Woman ends up in DC's version of Asgard after the events of Dark Knight Death Metal. Here she learns that there seems to be a problem with souls going missing. She attempts to solve it, but ends up bonking heads with Thor, who isn't much for diplomacy. At least, not initially. Don't worry though, Diana puts him in his place, besting him in combat, taking Mjolnir, smashing him in the face with it before crushing it between her two hands. She's like, hammers, not really my thing. And of course, only then is Thor willing to listen to what she has to say. But don't worry, it all works out in the end. Everyone's able to sit at a table and have a discussion and a beer afterwards, so yay. Number 5. Can't stop killing. It's hard to tell who would be more embarrassed in this scenario, Wonder Woman or all of her friends who try to reach out to her and really epically fail. This all goes down in a dark multiverse tale, a darker version of War of the Gods. Here, Wonder Woman ends up losing her mother and in her darkness finds herself possessed and overtaken by Hecate, who uses Wonder Woman as her host to reach out and conquer Earth. Wonder Woman's friends try to stop Diana and reach her, but she's trapped deep within a pit of despair after having not properly dealt with her emotions, basically. Struggling to find her way back to love and hope, the only solution is for many magic users of DC to band together, sacrificing themselves in order to defeat Hecate, but still unable to bring back Diana. Whew. Zatanna, as a result, keeps Hecate in Diana's body locked away, hoping to one day find a cure for the possession so she can bring back her friend once more. Number 4. Rejected. But for real this time. Real rejection. So this isn't rejection of the romantic sort, but it is the rejection of a kind of, like a team-up sort, I guess you could say. In Wonder Woman the Hecate, Bruce and Diana end up at odds with one another. As such, the two end up in a fight with one another. Wonder Woman handily ends up defeating Batman in that fight, placing her boot on his head as he lays in a puddle, and urges him to not get back up. Batman decides to surrender, which I think is a good choice. Instead of fighting back, Batman tries a new tactic and begs for Diana's mercy and protection. This shocks Wonder Woman as Batman clings to her boots. He calls on the age-old ritual and rites to seek her power and her aid. Wonder Woman, however, reminds Bruce of his history, saying that in times previous, heroic men have been denied, as she chooses to deny him now. Ouch. Looks like Batman needs to brush up on his reading of the Iliad, apparently. Number 3. Poking eyes and breaking arms. And in Justice Gods Among Us Year 4, there is a brutal showdown between Superman and Wonder Woman that is basically orchestrated by Batman. The two face off in a trial by combat style fight in order to settle a dispute, with Wonder Woman being forced to fight as she was nominated by Batman, even though she and Supes are kinda still technically on the same side here. However, this just means that in the end, Diana is able to use Clark's hesitancy to her advantage. She not only defeats Clark, but she does so brutally. At first it seems as though he'll come out victorious, but the fight ends with Diana clearly on top, attempting to gouge out his eyes before succeeding in breaking his arm. Youch. It's not easy to break a Kryptonian's arm, by the way. That is a lot. Number 2. Defeated by love? That's right, Wonder Woman actually defeated someone with basically just the power of love. Although I suppose I shouldn't say like just the power of love. After all, love is kinda Wonder Woman's biggest ideal, I'd say, and it also is extremely powerful if you know how to use it. Case in point, when Diana went up against a villainous Donna Troy. Donna seemingly had the upper hand in the fight, claiming to be the more powerful of the two, designed to be a more perfect version of Diana when Wonder Woman decided to bust out one of her most effective weapons, the lasso of truth, which unlike Ghost Rider's pen and stare, almost always actually works on the folks that she targets it with. I know there's gonna be Ghost Rider fans coming for me in the comments. They're gonna be like, look, the pen and stare is great, but I'm just saying I can give you so many examples of times it didn't work. I think it's almost equal. It's like a 1-for-1. Compelled to see and realize the truth, Diana reminded Donna of what it really meant to be an Amazon. It's not about power, you see, or strength. It's about being part of a culture, being part of a family, being a sister. That is the most important defining word of Amazonian culture. Sister. And with that one word and realization, Diana handily defeats her sister Donna using nothing but truth and love. Number 1. The truth comes out. One of the most memed Power Girl and Wonder Woman moments comes from the 2007 The Brave and the Bold series in issue number 7. While many people have spun this series of panels with their own reason for why Kara is so shocked at her answer to Wonder Woman's question, changing up just what that answer is, the real dialogue sees Kara handing back Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, and while passing it over to her, answering Diana's question of, where she's off to next. Power Girl responds in the comic that she's off to go kill Superman, shocking both herself and Diana, and leaving her super embarrassed while Diana is convinced that something must be wrong with Power Girl. Perhaps she's brainwashed or she's possessed, as the lasso obviously compels those it touches to only tell the truth. So, she's gotta be telling the truth. Wow, what an embarrassing way to realize that that's going on. Number 10. Puppy Bonanza. How do you defeat the Hulk? With puppies, of course. At least that was the suggested intel that Bruce Banner provided S.H.I.E.L.D. when both he and Hulk were working with S.H.I.E.L.D. Bruce claimed in order to defeat, or rather diffuse, the Hulk's rage, that S.H.I.E.L.D. should basically get a crate filled with puppies and then unleash them on him. And surprisingly, it worked. Although maybe not so surprisingly, I feel like the Hulk would like puppies. Who doesn't like puppies? This is probably the cutest, most embarrassing moment for the Hulk on this list. Get ready though, because it's about to get a whole lot more gross and sad and weirder than a crate filled with adorable puppies, if you can believe that. Number 9. Throws a tantrum. In the Ultimate Universe, at one point Hulk decides to throw a tantrum after Betty Ross no longer wants to be with him. Sad. He claims that perhaps Betty should try him on for size if Banner is no longer good enough. Hulk even asks at one point if Banner is too much of a woman for Betty, and perhaps that is the problem. All this while wreaking havoc and causing a bunch of destruction downtown so that the Ultimates had to come in and basically subdue him. This is all apparently because Betty is on a date with Freddie Prinze Jr., which does happen in that issue. It's a weird time. Although admittedly after Bruce is like, oh, this was just a test, I was just testing you, that's not what it was about, which makes it even weirder really. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you're loving what we do here over at Top 10 Nerd, please head on over to Facebook where you can also follow and like us as well. We also have lots of cool content coming to you there, and we're gonna have some fresh stuff too over on Facebook, so you want to get in now. On the ground floor. Number 8 disappoints Umar. Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, Hulk gets up to lots of risque adventures. In case you didn't know. One such adventure takes place in The Defenders in the 2005 series. In issue number 3, Hulk is turned into the plaything of Dormammu's sister, Umar. Umar is an extremely powerful sorceress who is apparently completely irresistible when it comes to her seductive charms. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I've seen Dormammu. He doesn't look that hot. Don't worry, Umar is attractive. She's an attractive sorceress lady. She decides it might be fun to have some alone time with the Hulk, but while Hulk has a good time, Umar just ends up pretty disappointed. Not only was their alone time pretty short-lived, but soon after that, while Hulk is completely knocked out, he transforms back into Bruce Banner, leaving Umar to be even more disappointed. She's like, who's this guy? Where'd he come from? He's even worse than where'd the big green guy go? Number 7, Hulk gets distracted. In the same issue where Hulk chases after Betty Ross in downtown Manhattan in the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, when the Ultimates are called in, despite being a force to be reckoned with, Hulk also at one point is successfully distracted by Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, when she flashes him. Yeah, despite being an unstoppable wrecking machine who can take out even a giant-sized Ant-Man, Hulk is successfully detained by this tactic, which gives Captain America enough time to catch up in a tank, hoping to basically sedate the big green Goliath. Unfortunately, this plan doesn't work out for Cap. Like, I know Hulk is all riled up because of Betty, but I still can't believe that this plan of Janet's worked, or that it was even a plan of Jan's at all. Oh my gosh, the Ultimates. Number 6, blaming mutants. One of the times Hulk felt some shame in his actions was during World War Hulk, when he went after Professor X. Hulk had returned to Earth after the Illuminati sent him off-world, and the new home that he had made for himself on Sakaar was destroyed in a devastating explosion from the same ship that had carried him there. Deeply distraught, Hulk decided to return to Earth for some payback. He came after the members of the Illuminati, the secret so-called superhero group. Are they really superheroes though? Well, they are, but they don't always act like it. Although Professor X was not among the members present at the meeting where they decided to send Hulk off-world for the Earth's safety, the Hulk still wanted to know how the Professor would have voted had he been present. This put the Hulk into direct conflict with the X-Men, who came out of the woodwork to basically defend the Professor, even though it was kind of a weird time for him in the comics, but we won't talk about that now. And this resulted in the Hulk attacking a bunch of seemingly innocent mutants who simply came to the Professor's aid when the Hulk attempted to take him away to atone. Despite all the violence and devastation he wrought, the fighting is stopped by the mutant Mercury, giving a speech about how the Hulk should be ashamed of his actions for attacking a group like the mutants, who also know what it's like to be outcast just because of who they are, and who also just like recently went through M-Day, so they're like, hey, maybe give us a break. For shame. Although I will say that even when Hulk stops, he's like, yo, Professor X, this is still all on you and you should feel really bad about it. Number 5, Thor's hammer. Returning one more time to the Ultimates, issue number 5, I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry, as there are a lot of weird Hulk moments in this universe, and especially in this issue to be honest. When Thor arrives on scene, he seems to be one of the few members of the team who is moderately successful in striking out at the rampaging brute. He successfully beats Hulk down to the ground with Mjolnir. However, even this is not enough to make Hulk give up. At one point, Thor asks Hulk if he's had enough, stating, your jaw is broken, your ribs are cracked, and one of your lungs has just been punctured. But even then, Hulk is not ready to give up, which sounds impressive until you hear Hulk's embarrassing response. Nah, Thor's hammer just made Hulk for Betty again. Oh boy. And he also goes on to call Thor a hippie, no doubt because he has long hair. Oh geez. Number 4. Hot, bothered, and lonely. At one point during the Incredible Hulk annual from 2000, Hulk finds himself feeling super alone. At the same time, his cousin Jennifer is thinking of him and wondering if Hulk indeed feels alone. Wondering if he even knows that he's Bruce. The Hulk is driven by an unexplainable urge to attack Jennifer when he comes upon her and the Avengers, with Jen in her She-Hulk form. Hulk is thinking about Betty, and it seems Vision is analyzing his brutish behavior to indicate Hulk is seeking a mate? He is attempting a show of dominance and looking to basically fight She-Hulk into submission. Yeah, you guessed it, the Hulk thinks She-Hulk is one of his kind and he's looking to mate with her, as the Bruce side of him is repressed and I don't think is aware enough to acknowledge that She-Hulk is actually his cousin Jennifer Walters, and to exert control and make Hulk stop. Fortunately, Jen is able to rebuke him and Hulk actually accepts her no. But there is an embarrassing line where Hulk runs up behind She-Hulk and shouts, "Hulk will smash She-Hulk! Hulk is strong as there is!" Oh jeez. These moments. Jen takes that surprisingly well too. I would not take that as well. I would not be very pleased. Number 3. Stomach trouble. While Hulk is definitely known for being the strongest there is, he isn't often known for being, the brightest there is all the time. Case in point when he fought Logan in the Old Man Logan universe. Now this version of the Hulk is a lot older, a lot meaner, and possibly a lot crazier, but he still proved to be a tough cookie for Logan to take down. In fact, when the two finally face one another in that universe, it seems as though old Pappy Hulk has won. He completely devours Logan and, well, that seems to be the end of it. Or so it would seem. Later that night, Hulk gets some indigestion in the form of Wolverine clawing his way out of the Hulk. Probably not so wise for old Hulk to eat a man with 2 sets of adamantium claws and a regenerative healing factor. Number 2. Scared to death. In the story A Little Fire from Immortal Hulk, Time of Monsters issue number 1, Bruce dies, and while he doesn't stay dead, his death here causes Hulk some pretty big embarrassment. In this story, Bruce Banner is manipulated by Scarecrow into going into a movie theater where Scarecrow is keeping other residents of the town Banner happened to wander into. At the movie theater, Scarecrow is forcing people to watch their greatest fears come to life on screen in order to feed off their fear. For Banner, his fears are so great that they basically kill him dead. Don't worry though, as we learn throughout Immortal Hulk, no death is really permanent for the hero, and soon Bruce is overtaken by the Hulk, returning to life. The Hulk avenges Bruce's temporary death, although he does remark even he is embarrassed by Banner's demise, saying, "Scared to death? That was puny, even for Banner." It is pretty embarrassing if you get scared to death. But it can happen. Things are scary. Just give Banner a break there. Although you know Hulk, he's still gonna at least avenge Bruce's death. Number 1. Old Pappy Hulk. Probably one of the most embarrassing things Hulk has ever done in the comics was to actually mate with his cousin Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. I know we talked about when Hulk got all riled up and chased after Jen and even attacked her because, well, he was not fully in control and basically was aroused by her, but at least that never really happened, right? Well, wrong. It did happen. But don't worry, it is safely contained in an alternate universe, so it doesn't affect the main continuity. Thank goodness. This took place in the Old Man Logan universe, where it's implied that Hulk may have actually lost his mind due to gamma radiation poisoning his brain over time. However, Bruce doesn't seem to think that's the case, and more states that he intentionally chose to mate with Jen because to him it was just a logical choice. It just made sense. He was like, I mean, who else would I mate with? Someone that isn't related to me? That would be insane. We also don't really know what Jennifer's feelings were on this matter, whether she was into it or was more like of kind of an unwilling victim, which makes the whole thing even worse. I think that she came around at least to it, but it's never really stated. Oh boy, I'm embarrassed now. I feel like I have secondhand embarrassment from writing this list.
Number 10. Nearly kills Aquaman in a weird competition in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, number 115. When Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen is eaten by the same whale that ate Jonah in the Bible, he develops the same superpowers as Aquaman. Jimmy uses these newfound powers to save the day when a bunch of sunken ships surface and almost crash into an aircraft carrier. Superman and Aquaman show up, and Soups asks Aquaman why he didn't handle the incident and implies that he's been slipping ever since his wife Mera disappeared. An incensed Aquaman tells Superman that he is far more powerful than Jimmy and can prove it in any test the Man of Steel comes up with. Superman takes both of them to a desert and explains that since their powers only allow them to be out of the water for an hour, and it has been 55 minutes since they were in the sea, they will soon begin to die. Whoever lasts the longest will be King of Atlantis. He leaves them to struggle and returns to taunt them with a pitcher of seawater. When Aquaman loses, Jimmy has him taken back to Atlantis. Once he's gone, Superman reveals that he is actually Proteus, the old man of the sea in disguise. So technically, this wasn't Superman, but Aquaman doesn't learn this until much later in the comic, so for a chunk of time, he thinks that Superman did all that to him. It's not actually Superman, so I put it in the number 10 slot, but honestly, this behavior wouldn't be that unusual for the Silver Age Man of Steel. Number 9 makes a smut film with Mr. Miracle's wife in Action Comics number 593. In a really bizarre story by John Byrne, Mr. Miracle comes home to Darkseid sitting in his living room. Darkseid informs him that his wife, Big Barda, has been captured and hands him a VHS tape. Mr. Miracle awkwardly crawls around on the floor to put the tape in his VCR and discovers that his wife has been hypnotized and is starring in adult films. He takes off to find his wife. The villain, Sleaze, shows up at the studio to talk to the director and reveals that he also has Superman under his control and suggests that the director use Superman and Big Barda in a film together. Mr. Miracle arrives just in time to see his wife and Superman making out in a shabby bedroom set, and he interrupts the filming. The three heroes defeat the villains, but all three of the heroes are pretty embarrassed by the situation, and Superman claims that he doesn't remember what happened while under Sleaze's control, but I think he might just be lying to get out of an awkward situation. Anyways, that's the last of these entries on the list where it isn't actually Superman or he isn't in control of his actions, so let's get into the meat of the list. Number 8, his first fight with Batman in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 2. In the story of how the Justice League came together in 2011's New 52 reboot, the heroes are all loners who don't trust each other. When Batman and Green Lantern come across a parademon and a mother box, they are unable to identify it, but realize it is of alien origin. They decide that their best bet is to go to Metropolis and talk to the only other alien they know about, Superman. Due to a misunderstanding, Superman believes that the other two heroes are somehow involved with the parademons and attacks them. Batman tries to hold his own by throwing tear gas, sonic grenades, and tasers at the Man of Steel with no effect. Superman chides the Caped Crusader, telling him, "Your belt's empty, Batman," before grabbing him by the throat and slamming him into a wall. Considering how well Batman managed to do against Superman in subsequent fights, he clearly felt this loss, and I'd argue has never felt so powerless. Number 7, his fight with Green Lantern in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 2. Continuing on from the previous entry, let's talk about how the same fight went for Green Lantern. He spent most of the flight to Metropolis bragging to Batman that he would have no problem beating the Man of Steel. When they found Superman, Hal told Batman to stay back while he handled Superman. Superman then came at him faster than a speeding bullet and more powerfully than a locomotive. While Batman was being mildly irritating at best to Superman, Green Lantern came in for round 2, tying Superman up with constructs of giant chains. Superman smirked and said, "Chains? Really? You're funny, Green Lantern," before easily shattering the construct and renewing his attack. Pretty much all of Hal's confidence shattered at this point, and he protected Batman and himself in a bubble as Superman bounced them around the city. Superman was being pretty intense about the whole situation, but thankfully a timely intervention by the Flash allowed them to recover and explain themselves to the Man of Steel. Number 6, exiles Supergirl to another planet in Action Comics number 258. When Superman's cousin Kara Zor-El came to Earth and revealed that he wasn't the only surviving member of his family, Superman described it as the happiest moment of his life. He then dropped her off at the orphanage and told her that she had to keep her existence a secret. She took all of this in stride and followed Superman's orders until one day she saw Krypto the Superdog flying around. She introduced herself to Krypto and the two had a fun time playing together. Then Superman showed up and started scolding her for revealing her existence. Supergirl very reasonably points out that Krypto is a dog and can't talk, let alone reveal her to the world. Superman responds by banishing her to live on an asteroid for a year in complete isolation. Supergirl stays there for a week before Krypto shows up with a note from Superman telling her that there is a storm of kryptonite dust coming to the asteroid and that she must return to the orphanage in her secret identity of Linda Lee for one day before going back to space for the rest of her exile. Linda shows up at the orphanage but finds herself in a spot of trouble when she comes across a search party that has been looking for the missing orphan. She covers herself in mud and claims to have been stranded in Dismal Swamp for the past week. She dodges reporters' questions, and Superman reveals that all the shaming and sending her off into exile was an elaborate test to see if she was clever enough to figure out how to maintain a secret identity. Superman congratulates Supergirl for passing the test, and she excitedly asks if this means that she no longer has to keep her existence a secret, and Superman clarifies that he never said that, and tells her to continue living in secret until he damn well says so. Number 5 replaces Krypto with a different super dog in Superboy number 109. Due to his many years in comics and his recent appearance in DC League of Super Pets, you are likely passingly familiar with Krypto the Superdog, but are you familiar with his rival, Swifty the Greyhound? Our story begins when Superboy is fiddling with his Phantom Zone projector while the imprisoned Kryptonian criminals led by General Zod are trying to affect the Boy of Steel by using mental suggestion to convince him to destroy himself. Because of his powers, Superboy isn't affected, so the Phantoms try again with Krypto to no avail. They instead brainwash a dog named Swifty and control him into making a potion that gives him superpowers. When Swifty shows up with powers, Superboy decides to put the two dogs through a series of tests to determine who is the better super pet and will get to go with him on an important space mission. The Phantom Kryptonians help Swifty so that he wins the competition. At this point, Superboy takes away Krypto's cape and gives it to the rival dog. To add insult to injury, he makes Krypto put on a damaged, moth-eaten cape and then ditches his dog to go to space with Swifty. Even Krypto thinks this is a bit much, as on the teaser page for the story, we see him thinking to himself between sobs, "Bad enough my master prefers that supermutt to me, but did Superboy have to give Swifty my snazzy, indestructible cape and make me wear this crummy, moth-eaten spare cape of his?" Swifty eventually betrays the Boy of Steel, who is saved by a timely intervention by Krypto, but that doesn't make his treatment of his dog any less weird and kinda petty. Number 4, one-upping Batman's gifts in World's Finest number 85. When the ruler of Balkania, Princess Verena, comes to America, her only desire is to see the famous heroes Superman and Batman. And if Robin is also there, that's fine. When the two heroes meet the princess, both are immediately smitten and begin competing for the beautiful princess's affection. When Batman goes out and gets her a bouquet of orchids, Superman flies to South America and gets a giant orchid for the princess. Batman gives her a large diamond ring that he bought, and Superman responds by getting a giant piece of coal and crushing it into a giant, supersized diamond and offering it to the princess. Batman takes Verena on a tour of the city in the Batmobile, letting a very unimpressed Robin drive while he puts the Bat moves on the princess. The mood is ruined when they look at a nearby cliff that Superman has defaced by carving a giant heart with the words "S loves V." Batman goes to the train station with the princess so she can move on from Metropolis to Gotham, but before he can get on the train, Superman picks up the train and flies it to Gotham, leaving Batman to frantically chase after them in the Batplane. When they discover that the princess is actually in love with her bodyguard, Captain Stefan, the heroes claim that they were just pretending to be rivals in order to better protect her, but come on. Even if that is the case, that doesn't mean Superman had to go so all out on making Batman look like a fool in front of the princess and the entire world. Number 3, making Robin his court jester in World's Finest number 165. When the evil King Wolf escapes from prison, he claims to his men that he is dying. He devises a competition for his henchmen to determine who the new king of crime will be. They must complete 3 robberies, and whoever pulls off the robbery best will be the new king. Batman and Superman suspect that the king is lying about his condition and decide to help the criminals with their robberies in hopes that the king will reveal his true plan. Batman and Robin take out one of the henchmen, and Batman disguises himself as the goon in order to infiltrate the gang. One of the other criminals disguises himself as Superman in order to pretend to stop a robbery and take the loot as evidence. In order to make sure he wins the competition, Batman knows he has to pull off a spectacular crime, and well in disguise as the goon, disguises himself as Batman and holds himself hostage, threatening to have himself killed if the submarine he's robbing doesn't hand over the ship's supercomputer. Robin pretends to not know what's going on, and Batman pretends to capture him and takes him back to the king's hideout. Okay, if you're confused, don't worry, it gets worse. Batman ties lies with the criminal who is disguised as Superman, who unbeknownst to Batman actually is Superman, and both are crowned the new kings of crime. When asked what his first royal decree is, Superman immediately says he wants to see Robin killed. Like, honestly, it comes to mind a little too fast. Batman is able to claim that since he captured Robin, he should get to decide his fate, and suggests that they make him the new court jester. Superman agrees, and Robin is forced to dress as a jester and perform for the court of criminals, while Batman and Superman tool around. Now, Dick Grayson was a circus performer before becoming a hero, but it's still weird that Superman and Batman made him dress up and give them a full show before making any effort to figure out the criminal's plan. Number 2 frames Batman for witchcraft in World's Finest number 186 and 187. When Batman and Superman go back in time to colonial times, they come across a woman who had been accused of witchcraft and is about to be dunked in the town pond. Superman moves too fast to be seen and goes into the water and uses his steel-like teeth to gnaw through the dunking mechanism. Batman then dives into the water and rescues the woman. She is smitten with Batman and gives him a kiss. Superman thinks to himself, "Isn't that just like a woman? I did the work and Batman's collecting the goodies." In retaliation, the Man of Steel disguises himself as Batman and starts flying around the town on a broomstick. He then uses his super speed to make it look like Batman has turned coal to diamonds, and uses his super ventriloquism to make it look like a black cat is accusing Batman of being an agent of Satan. As an impartial out-of-towner, Superman is chosen to prosecute a very confused Batman. He has Batman put in the stocks and sentences him to be burnt at the stake. When Batman is tied to the stake, Superman uses his heat vision to start the fire, claiming that it is further proof of Batman's demonic powers. Batman is eventually able to make the townsfolk think that Superman is the witch and is set free. Superman tells Batman that he saw that he had been possessed by a demon and was putting Batman in danger to scare the demon out of his body. But as the reader, we can read Superman's thought bubbles during the frame job, and he really does think about how jealous he is that the woman has chosen Batman over him, and is laughing and giggling to himself as Batman begs him to stop the townsfolk from carrying him away in chains. So even if he had a good reason to put Batman in danger, he's getting way too much joy out of it. Number 1 forces Jimmy Olsen to marry a gorilla in Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen number 98. For anyone claiming Jimmy Olsen doesn't count as a hero, I would remind you that Jimmy has saved Superman's life several times and has developed superpowers even more times, so I'm counting him. In Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen number 98, Jimmy and Clark are on assignment in the African jungle where a blockbuster movie is being filmed. The film crew is using the local natives as extras, and in exchange are showing the natives a different jungle movie every night. The natives worship a sacred ape named Bruna, who comes into the camp and is enamored with the showing of King Kong. When Jimmy dresses up in a Tarzan costume and begins swinging from vines in an attempt to convince the director to give him a role in the movie, he gets trapped by an underwater pool of quicksand. He is rescued by Bruna, the sacred ape, who is immediately smitten with the young cub reporter. The ape tries to woo Jimmy, even bringing him a bouquet of bananas, but Jimmy runs away. The sacred ape goes on a rampage after losing her chosen mate, and Superman decides that the best thing for everyone would be if Jimmy just goes along with it until he can figure out a plan. He drops Jimmy off with the ape and brings them a fruit basket as an engagement gift. Jimmy's girlfriend, Lucy Lane, shows up and makes the ape a bridal veil. Just when things can't seem to get any worse for Jimmy, Superman shows up dressed as a witch doctor to perform the ceremony while the movie crew films the whole thing. Bruna eventually tires of Jimmy and throws him off a cliff, and he is rescued by the Man of Steel, but I think we can all agree that Superman let this one go on a little too far before he intervened.